Well, hello everyone and welcome to another R-Type NRG. And here we are with 2009's R-Type Dimensions on the Xbox 360. This is the first version of this rehash of R-Type to come out. So think about back in the early 2000s, so I think the late 90s actually, when R-Types for the PlayStation came out, which was basically the two arcade versions of R-Type 1 and R-Type 2 on the PlayStation. This is the same sort of gimmick, R-Type 1 and R-Type 2, but with a completely redrawn graphic set and a very funky isometric camera angle, which is what we're going to play it as. We're going to play it in the 3D graphic mode. You can play it traditionally in the original mode, in the original arcade view, exactly the same as the original. But I'm going to play it in the 3D mode, and I'm also going to play it in the isometric crazy camera mode, as they call it, which is a nice spin on the game. So certainly ramps up the challenge a little bit by judging distances. Classic game. I'm not going to go for the infinity mode. The infinity mode is very handy though. So is the unlocking stages. As you can see, you can just jump to stages whenever you want. Makes the game a lot easier to complete if you're jumping by stage. But here we go with the classic theme. And the classic, look at this, just really nice. I've said this in a previous NRG, or another, should I say, another R-Type NRG, that I don't think the graphics style is better than what R-Type Final does on the PS2, because it's a completely original game, obviously within the R-Type franchise. This has taken the cues from the original game and just souping it up for the modern day with some nice little snazzy effects in the background there, nice little planets and the 3D sort of debris going on as we go into the husk of this derelict ship. I've always thought this was like a derelict ship as you're flying into at the beginning of R-Type first stage. And see the very impressive the way the enemies have all been redrawn in 3D, re-rendered, very impressive. Lovely looking. I mean, the lighting effects are really nice. I love the lighting effects given off by the Force and all the weapons. As you can see, look at the glow of the reflective lasers there. Looks a bit weird when you look at it in this sort of like 3D angle, because you think, well, why don't you just, like for instance that, why don't you just fly around it? It's, you know, you're kind of losing an aspect of flight, aren't you? Of side-to-side movement, which is a bit weird. I mean, when you look at this kind of 3D aspect, when you look at it on 2D, of course, it doesn't have that kind of appearance. And also bits like this, so you can see the jewels there. They don't look quite right, do they? They don't look quite on the button. It's brave to do this and very cool, and the fact that you can switch between the two is really cool as well. Might do that a couple of times during this gameplay. Just switch between the two, old style 2D and the crazy cam 3D. But yeah, some bits don't look quite on point. Some bits look a bit off. They look a bit like, okay, that's not quite how it. I mean, for instance, there, Dogkeratop's tail just appeared, which is a bit weird. Looking impressive though, very nicely. I mean, especially the head. See the way the belly head, they're very easier there than it is on the original. But the way the belly head came out there was a bit weird, wasn't it? So, yeah, there you go. You can just switch like that instantly to one press. You can just switch to original mode like that, as you can see. And then I'm just going to switch back like that. Excellently done. Lovely transitional. Really cool. Don't do that while you're firing actually in game. You know, when you're doing something, that'll bloody put you off, won't it? Yeah, apart from that, I mean, graphically it's very impressive. Just a few things a bit off here and there that don't look quite right, especially in this version of the camera angle. In the other camera angle, it actually probably does look a little bit more impressive, even though it's 2D. Well, 3D but flat, should I say, and not this isometric sort of slightly behind the R9 camera view. Some bits just don't look quite right, but they've made a good effort. So you know, I like the little touches, little flashy touches, like the power-up orbs there moving, hovering around. Slight detection. The detection is certainly quite a little bit off on this mode as well. As you can see, when I was just trying to force the pit into one of those Baidu monsters there. I like the glowing, bulging, slimy brains in the jars though. That's nice. And we're approaching. Is it Gormanda? Can't remember. with a heart. I think it's Gormander, isn't it? Something like that. My memory is not serving me well. I should know. Oh, bloody hell, that was close. Jesus. See, bits like this, and the snake, for instance, you can see the 3D aspect on it, but isometric-wise, its movement is just exactly the same as what it would be in 2D. No movement, no change there. Nice re-render of Gormander, though. The heart, very nice. The music, of course, retains exactly the same. The music in the Xbox version is exactly the same as the arcade. Fantastic music as it is. 5 years later, in 2014, R-Type Dimensions came out on the PS3, and along with it came a very beautiful remix soundtrack of all the stages tunes of R-Type 1 and 2. Very good. Some of the remixes are actually blinding, especially the title theme. Brilliant. Unfortunately, with the Xbox version, you don't get that. There we go. Just switched back there. That was smooth, wasn't it? Smooth. Lovely transitional. I do like that. I think that's a real cool wow effect when it does that. Nice to do. So, playable as ever, of course, as hard as ever, it is classic R-Type. I mean, the gameplay aspects and the timing, the positioning of all the enemies remain exactly like they did in the original. So the only things really that have changed are the graphic snaz, as it were. The big giant battleship and mothership looking good as well in this, looking very smart. And, you know, I'm going to forgive it on the music, because the music is terrific anyway. I mean, R-Type's music's always been terrific. Like I said, the remix on the PS3 version makes it a little bit better because it has that option. And you can also, just like the graphic modes, you can switch between the classic music and the remix music on that version as well. Which I didn't know that before I bought the Xbox version. I should have done a little bit of research beforehand, shouldn't I? Naughty bug. Deary me. But any fan of R-Type would absolutely adore this. A little bit of the nostalgia hit and a little bit of sort of retroactive fixing. Excellently smart. Love it. Oh, come on. This bit's always tricky. Get these bastards. Come on. Quick. Oh, shite. No, that didn't work out, did it? That didn't work out. I got absolutely blasted with a big fireball up my asshole. So, there. Excellent version of R-Type. I'd rather go for the PS3 version if I were you, because it has that extra additional remix soundtrack. But playability-wise and graphics-wise, the Xbox version is excellent as well. And I think it's a little bit more reasonable in price now. It was quite expensive when it first came out, I believe. But I think on the Xbox Live now it's a little bit more reasonable. And it was brought to us by Tozai. On behalf, of course, Irem, who developed the original classic Irem shooter. So that's it. R-Type Dimensions, R-Type 1, should I say, on the Xbox 360. I hope you enjoyed that. I recommend this game. It's pretty good. A nice rehash of an old classic. And it's one I'm going to keep coming back to, I think, because I'm going to keep dying like that and not really get far, because you can jump between levels. That's what's brilliant about this version. Cheers, see you next time, and remember, fuck those fucking Baidu bastards. Never bug.